All right, official for the recording. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Survive and Thrive. So glad that you're here. Now, my goal for today is participation. My goal is that this is a mastermind. It's not a role play session. It's a mastermind to talk about new listing agreements, new buyer agency agreements, offers of compensation, whether or not we are following one model or another. I understand also that there is, I guess you could call it some debate, differences of opinions when it comes to how we're doing this. Broker to broker compensation. NAR is going to tell you that they're totally okay with that. FREC, if you're here in the state of Florida with me, is going to tell you that they're okay with that. The biggest challenge that I personally have, and I'll just give you my opinion on a couple of things here, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys to mastermind. My biggest concern with some of the things that I'm seeing is the Department of Justice was involved in this process as well. And all of you should go and read what the entire settlement agreement and read what the Department of Justice's position is on this. One of the things you're going to find is the Department of Justice is currently watching what you guys say on social media. And there's only one reason for them to do that, by the way. And when I say you guys, I just mean all real estate agents. Me too. There's only one reason for them to do that, and that would be to make sure that we are cooperating with the settlement agreement. Now, the Department of Justice, in my opinion, is, and there's a really good article on this on the Housing Wire, by the way, they're not okay with the workarounds. They specifically say in this article on Housing Wire that they are looking for the agents that are using workarounds to navigate this settlement agreement. Why would they do that? The only reason that I can think of is they're preparing for another lawsuit or they're preparing for legal actions. Now, the best thing, and again, in my opinion here, guys, the best thing that you can do to protect your interest is to get very, very clear that the buyer agent is being paid directly from the seller. The buyer agent can negotiate directly with the seller their offer of compensation. That compensation is being offered in the form of a concession, and it's being paid directly to the buyer's broker. As long as you, again, my opinion, as long as you follow that model that I just described to you, in my opinion, again, you're going to be okay with the Department of Justice. It's the workarounds that concern me. And I've seen all of the Facebook posts. Trust me, some of them are super clever with sign writers and writing on the key tag 3%, or someone posted a picture of a shot from the air where 3% is carved into the grass when they cut the grass in the backyard. Haha, funny. And is that okay? I don't know. I think the safe route is to not participate in those things. Here's the other thing I say, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I think this is a win for you if you look at it the right way. I think in the past, a lot of real estate agents were just working from a position of the listing agreement says commission is 2.5% to a buyer's agent. It said it right in the agreement. It said it right on the MLS. And now we're writing offers, and we're writing offers based on we get paid 2.5%, kind of like taking orders. Now you have an opportunity to work as a skill-based agent who has the ability, based on the level of skill and knowledge that you bring to the transaction, to negotiate a fee based on what you feel you're worth versus just working for whatever the listing agent negotiated on your behalf. Now you have the opportunity to negotiate that fee based on the skill level and knowledge that you bring to the transaction. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. There are quite a few of you in here, so if you'll hit your digital hand, please, so we don't talk on top of one another. Again, I need your participation in order for this to be effective. Sean, thank you for getting us started. Vivian, you're on deck. Go ahead, Sean.
A couple things. So I think for me, all I'm going to do is get the sellers to agree that they will or will not compensate the buyer's agent. And then after that, it's up to the buyer's agent to put their commission wrapped up in the deal. The way that I see it is the way that it's explained to me, the best course of action is that the buyer's agent's commission is now a term. And so if the buyer's agent wants 3% and the buyers need 6%, that's 9% that the seller is a term that they need to negotiate. So in essence, if I got a contract with that scenario, the seller could say, we'll give them 6% seller concession. Now they've just negotiated the buyer's agent commission and concessions for the buyer. Once you push that back to the other side, I figure out amongst themselves, is the buyer's agent getting 3 and the buyer only getting 3, or is all 6 going to the buyer? How are they going to figure out? At that point, it doesn't matter to the seller because he or she has negotiated the um, agent's compensation. One last thing. I had an agent call me and he was at an open house. Buyer came in, is going to use him, but he wanted to negotiate his commission right there. And he said, I want you to only take 1.5. And he was asking me if he did a good job. And I said, no, how can you give away something you don't have? So if you're a buyer's agent and somebody says, hey, I want you to take less commission so that I can lower the price, whatever it is, how can you give away something you don't have? So if you don't have 3%, how can you give away 1.5?
Yeah.
And so I said, go back, get him to sign the 3% so that you can collect 3 and then negotiate for him. And if you get him everything he wants and you get your 3%, you've just killed the deal. You just did amazing. If you cannot get him what he wants, then you can give away your 1.5% to close the deal. And so that's how I approach buyers who are going to beat down on the commission. How can I give away what I don't have? Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so price only matters in the absence of value. And if I feel that I'm not bringing value to the relationship, to the transaction, then the only way that I'm going to earn business is to lower my fee. Price only matters in the absence of value. Vivian, you're up. Dave, you're on deck.
First, I want to say I appreciate being in this group because most of you are EXP and it's a different conversation. And it helps me because I have a license in Texas. I'm sorry, that'll be next. No, Georgia and Florida. And these are conversations that I don't get to hear anywhere else.
Yeah.
Saying that. So I think that when the DOJ looks, I think it's bigger than this. I think that they look to see what there'll be a pattern in the brokerages that are not doing their job, and they'll be able to attack leadership at the higher level and then bring a lawsuit. Because we're the little guys, right? We're little money, but then if they attack like EXP, Keller Williams up at the very top, then it could really put out a brokerage if they get sued again.
That's true.
So then third is is it okay to say on a Facebook post, price presented at purchase price, let's say 200,000, buyer concession 2.5%? If it says buyer concession, is that legal?
All right, so FREC would tell you yes, NAR would tell you yes. They've both published a list of things that you can do. You can advertise what's being offered to a buyer's agent on your own website. You can advertise it according to NAR, according to FRAC, if you're in the state of Florida, guys. You can use sign writers. You can pretty much do anything. The only thing that you can't do is post that commission in the MLS. Again, that's according to FRAC, it's according to NAR. My response anytime I'm in a conversation with somebody is go ask the DOJ if they're okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's where I would be. That's where I would caution you, Vivian, because if you read the article on Housing Wire, they specifically say that they are watching social media and collecting a list of agents who are using workarounds to get around this settlement. Now, there's only one reason for them to do that. It's not a good reason.
Mm-hmm. So we could also call legal aid. Would they should know this.
Yeah, I mean, if you call the legal hotline for the state of Florida, for example, they're going to tell you exactly what I just did, which is those workarounds are just fine. According to FRAC, according to NAR, they are. My whole point would be find out what the DOJ says on this. That's who you need to be concerned about. That's who you need to be paying attention to. All right, I'm going to go to, let's see, in order. Dave, Sean, you still have your hand up, by the way. Dave, Emma, and then Brian.
Okay. Well, appreciate it. And I think there's, I'm glad we're having these calls because I think there's so many different things. One of the things I feel like about the sign riders is it's because I have seen people saying it's like buyers, agents welcome, compensation offered. But it's like at that point, I feel like I've already missed the place where I want to have those conversations, which is with the seller. And I think something that would be helpful to me is understanding the scripting or pros and cons versus the upfront buyer's agent compensation versus the kind of letting the terms talk, because there's two schools of thought where it's like, hey, Mr. Seller, just like, it's always been negotiable. Are you having trouble hearing me, John?
Nope, just leaning in.
Oh, okay, sorry. So it's like just like, it has always been negotiable. But if we offer X% up front, say 3% up front, the buyers will know that. They'll know they don't have to bring anything else. We'll get more eyeballs on the property versus, hey, let's not agree to anything, kind of to Sean's point, before we have an offer. So like, are you willing to offer compensation? And it's yes. And then buyer's agents are calling and saying, hey, what is the compensation? It's like, bring me an offer. And they're like, no, I need to know so that I'm having this conversation with my buyer to know if they can even afford to come look at your house. And it's like, well, yes, you need to have that conversation. And I understand that's a whole separate conversation, but the role playing or the scripting with the seller to put ourselves in the best position, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I see both sides and I think it may be seller dependent, but I want to see if I'm missing something on that.
I see both sides as well, Dave. I will offer my opinion on that, but I want to go to Emma and Brian, because one of them may have a great answer for you before I give you my opinion.
Sounds good.
I'm dodging the bullet, hoping they come up with a better answer than I have. All right, Emma, you're up. Brian, you're on deck.
Good morning. So I'm with EXP, but I'm also in North Carolina. So obviously this may vary depending where else you are in the country. But I did a 4-hour Zoom last week with the NC Realtors, which was actually really helpful. And this was a question I had actually asked them, because I think in our morning call, John, that you were in with our actual group, obviously one of the people had mentioned pretty much what Sean has just said and what Dave has just kind of alluded to, that as the seller, as your fiduciary duty to the seller, why would you, even if they are willing to pay X amount, the full percent, to the buyer's agent, why would you offer that up when potentially that buyer could come in and actually they're only looking for Y%?
That's correct.
So therefore, are you failing your seller and your fiduciary duty to them? However, when kind of asked this question of the NC Realtors, their position was there's only been one thing. If you truly look at this lawsuit, it was obviously based on antitrust, transparency, all of that kind of stuff. But the one thing that has changed, if you look at it like the cold hard facts is we are no longer allowed to put that on the MLS.
That's correct.
You know, so the form 220 that we have here in North Carolina is that form that takes the place of the NLS. Why? Her position was, why are we trying to make this more complicated and create less transparency by saying, well, just bring me your best offer and we'll discuss it.
Understand.
If you're willing to put it on the MLS, why would you not be willing now to put it in a form? Because that's literally the only mechanism that has changed. And if you look at the Code of Ethics, Rule 58, something 11A, it actually ties the buyer's agency that you have to have that buyer agency signed, and therefore you have to know what that buyer will be potentially on the hook for before you present an offer. So by a selling agent, this is complicated, by a selling agent not saying, well, you know, bring me your best offer and we'll negotiate, they're in violation of that particular Code of Ethics. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've explained.
Totally understand where you're coming from, Emma. I really do. Yeah. Brian, you're up. I still got some things I'm going to share with you guys. So if you're thinking, gee whiz, John's not giving me his thoughts, I will. I just want to make from all of you first.
This is not in detail, but the overarching thought process, I think, for a lot of agents is going to be really good. It's going to drive agents to go get more listings because listings have always been king, and they're even bigger now because you're even more in the driver's seat, right?
That's true.
And I think that is going to be good for a lot of people. I think overall commissions are going to be higher on listings, just my gut. Because I think some buyers don't know how to present their value to their clients, and they're really going to have a rough time trying to continue to be paid what they've been paid. Yeah. And so I was on a meeting yesterday with a bunch of top agents in Austin, and we were talking about making sure we have a 100-point buyer presentation of all the services we provide.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
And it's going to strengthen both sides of our business in a big way, because it's making us all go back and figure out what our value is for our buyers, what our value is for our sellers, and have bigger and better conversations.
That's right. All right. So thank you, Brian. Here's my thoughts. Dave, I'll start with you. This is, in my opinion, I am going to build a listing focused business. For me personally, I never worked with a buyer, right? Took an average of 10 seller listings every month for 15 years. And this is just not a big deal. If I'm still in production, I'm just going to continue to take seller listings. All is good. The one thing that I would say for all of you, research when did buyer agents enter the picture when it comes to how we sell real estate. They weren't always a thing. There was a time when there were no buyer agents. It's not something that has existed from the very beginning. So what's my point? Here's my point. If the real estate industry shifts back to where we no longer have buyer agents, and you are going to make a living based on your ability, your skill, your knowledge, and your salesmanship when it comes to taking seller listings. What does that look like? If your future success depended on taking 2-3 seller listings every single month, every year, could you do that? And if the answer is no, then my answer back would be work on your skills when it comes to taking seller listings. Get better at that. That's going to be job security for you in the future. Now, secondly, if I'm taking a seller listing, I am going to have a conversation. Again, I'm just offering my opinion here, guys. I am going to have a conversation with the seller that includes how the buyer agent is being compensated. Part of my job is to help that seller get their home sold for the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the right terms. And we can't sell your home without a buyer. And how we compensate the buyer's agent is going to depend on real estate agent's level of motivation to show our property. And if somebody calls me and I tell them just submit the offer with an offer of compensation, and there's another property that that buyer likes just as much, then we might lose out on the competition to that other property. So I am having a conversation with the seller that includes how the buyer's agent is being compensated. I understand the flip side of that, that if there is a buyer who is willing to pay their buyer's agent and that agent brings an offer and they ask me, is the seller paying a buyer's agent? Yes, they are. How much are they paying? 2.5%. There's a possibility that that buyer was willing to pay that 2.5%. Therefore, my seller just lost out on 2.5%. Everybody got that? Okay. I do understand that. However, that is not something that I am posting on social media. I am not putting a sign writer. I am not putting 2.5% on a key tag or any of the other clever workarounds that you've seen that NAR says okay. In the state of Florida, FREC says okay, because I am super concerned about the Department of Justice. Really concerned about them. Really concerned about future lawsuits and legal ramifications from this. So Vivian, to your point, your question, no, I would not put it on social media. No, I would not do a sign writer or any other form of workaround. I do have an agreement with the seller that says they're paying 2.5%, and I'm more than glad to communicate that with the buyer's agent. And there's ways to do that, because your first thought could be, well, then you're going to be taking phone calls from a whole lot of people, because the only way they're going to know what you're offering is if they call you. Not necessarily true. All right. There is a way for you to communicate directly with every single buyer's agent is showing who's showing your property. You could, for example, send them a request for feedback, and in your request for feedback, you could let them know that the seller is cooperating with buyer's agents. They are paying a buyer's agent. Totally off the top of my head right now. I can come up with a better answer with more time on this. Broker to broker compensation is off the table. Now, I know there's a lot of brokerages out there who are completely okay with it. I'm not. I think it's a really bad idea. I think you're asking for a lawsuit and you're asking for problems with the Department of Justice. All right, there's my opinion. I hope I answered everybody's question. Dave, did I answer that question? Because I think I waited the longest to get back to you. My rambling message right there, did it include the answer to the question you were looking for? If not, ask me again.
Well, to be frank, I don't know if there is an answer that will come with time and that will come with data. And I think just hearing some other people kind of have the same question means that we really need to be diligent about talking to the seller about it, and then let the seller decide how they want to approach it. So, yeah. Because I know what's better for a listing agent, because you want to offer that compensation to secure more eyeballs, but that may not be best for them.
Okay. All right. Brian, talk to us. Your last thought, and then we're out.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say how important and valuable this call has been just every morning. Yesterday, I had a discussion, my first discussion with a real listing client. And he said, hey, would you take less than you normally do? And I said, absolutely not. I said, you only pay me when you get to the closing table. And his wife in the background goes, honey, he said no. He said, well, blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, you're only going to pay me if you like the offer that's brought in front of you. Right. And then we talked about compensation. And I said, you absolutely are being advised by me to offer compensation to the other side, because it will give you the best opportunity to net the highest price, period.
I agree.
And it was the end of the discussion, and it was over with, and it wasn't that big of a deal, and we move on.
All right. Very good. Vivian, did you get what you were looking for? Sean, your hand never went down, so don't think
I'm sorry, here navigating. How do I lower my hand? I did, and thank you. And I missed the name of the person that just said he doesn't think it's in the best interest of the seller to offer a compensation, which I would have to disagree, because there are buyers out there that are barely making it with the way the economy is right now, that they need help with
Yeah.
that compensation that they can't pay us as a buyer, because I had that experience. And I'm more on the listing side, but I'm not turning down buyers because I do want to help.
Yeah.
And so I would disagree that we do need to offer, and we need to have that discussion with the seller, that they need to offer the other side something to have more eyes on their property.
Yeah. I think it's awesome that there's different opinions here. I really, really do. Here, it's just the one thing that nobody's going to get sued over, and nobody is, the Department of Justice is not going to come after you in the conversation, whether or not you negotiate when you negotiate a commission for the buyer's agent when you're taking the listing or not. All right. I think you have two different opinions there. I totally get it. And I love the fact that there's different thoughts on this subject. You're good. Nobody's going to get sued over that. Nobody's going to get penalized by the Department of Justice over that. Dave, take us out.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think she may be talking about what I just said, and I don't. This is where I think these conversations matter, because I'm not saying I think that it's best for the seller to do that, but I could see a seller being like, "No, I don't want to pay anything like that." They think it's in their best interest, or that's what they want, and that's where the scripting is going to come into play about how to do that. And so, I haven't really seen anybody argue online even that it's in the best interest for the seller, outside of they have more control, is what I have heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of online, all right, this is being recorded. That's fun. You know, the real estate mastermind group on Facebook, the one that has like 100,000 members. You guys know what I'm talking about.
What a joke.
Leave that group. I'm serious, guys. It is a garbage dump for negative toxicity. Leave that group. All right, that's all I've got for today. Make it a great day.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Appreciate you, John.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.